A very good evening to all students.
Good
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 evening.
evening, sir.
Good
Good
evening,
evening,
sir.
sir.
Just hold on for 2 minutes, right? I'm just sharing the screen. What the problem? All right. The today's session is residential status, that is come under block 1. So let's begin today's session now. So let's begin from the meaning. What is the residential status, and how to determine the residential status? So the residential status has been defined under the Income Tax Act 1961. It's to establish whether a particular SSC or taxpayer who resided in India in a given financial year or not. So it is very a different concept from the citizenship, which will be granted to various individuals. So you might be an Indian citizen, but if you don't live in India, that it doesn't mean that it shows your residential status in India country as well. So even if you don't reside in India, it means you can also become a non-resident of India. So it totally depends on the number of days that a particular individual stayed in India in that particular financial year. And of course, a different tax rules applies to taxpayers, or you can say assessees with different residential status. So exactly in conclude, we can say that the residential status of an individual depends upon that whether a particular taxpayer or SSC have been stay in India or not, and depending upon and calculating the number of days that they stay in India, it's totally being considered to know exactly their residential status in India. Let's proceed the criteria, that what would be the criteria of determining the residential status for individuals, or you can say Hindu undivided family, or you can say company or a firm or association of persons or body of individuals, or we can say a judiciary artificial person. So these are the four main points on which a particular person or a estimator or investigator can easily determine the residential status. So the first one is the number of days the individual has been present in India during the relevant financial year. So the financial year is the beginning of the financial year is 1st April 2000 of any year, right? And it ended at 31st March of any year. So this is called a financial year pattern. So the first point is to know whether that a particular individual has been resided in India and on how many days, how much the time period he stayed in India. Second point is the number of days that the individual has been present in India during the 4 years immediately preceding the relevant financial year. Now, what is the meaning of the second point is, for let's take an example. The previous year is 2022 to 23. So if we take 4 years preceding this year, so the previous year is, let's say, 2022 to 23. So the preceding 4 years are, that is 2000 to 22, that means 2018 to 19, 2019 to 20, 2020 to 21, 2021 to 22. So these are the preceding 4 years of financial year 2022 to 23, and that is the meaning of second point. You have to estimate the number of days of during the 4 years preceding the financial year. Financial year would be any year. Let's say it's the year of 2022 to 23. So the preceding 4 years of 2022 to 23 is beginning from 2018 to 19 till 2021 to 22, right? So let's talk about the third point, the individual status as a citizen of India or a person of Indian origin. So whatever the status has been defined based on the number of days a particular individual reside in India, that states that whether the particular individual is a citizen of India or not, right? Fourth point is the individual status as an employee of the Indian government or public sector undertaking. If any person who are working in the Bharat Petroleum Limited, or any person who are working into the Bharat Gas Station Limited, let's say, so if you're working for 10 years, that means he is a resident of India, because he is, or he or she is working in that Indian company, that is Indian government company or public sector undertaking or company, during the 10 years or since 10 years. And that's the main reason he's a resident of India, because he or she is working since 10 years, right? So these are the four basic criteria to determine the residential status for individual, because now it is very important to understand foreign individuals that whether a particular individual is a resident or non-resident of India, right? Let's proceed to the next slide, that is the importance of residential status. So it is, in order to determine the residential status is very important, because a resident who is an ordinary resident has to pay a tax. It means a resident who is ordinary has to pay the tax. A resident who is not ordinary resident of India is not liable to pay the tax. And the non-resident have no right to pay the tax in India, because after all the residential status of that individual who is non-resident is has no label or have no right to pay the tax as per the rules under the Income Tax Act 1961. So, in order to determine the residential status, it is very important to know that whether it would be a resident, or if a particular individual is resident. So, so the next step is to find out whether it's an ordinary resident or not ordinary resident or non-resident, right? So, if a person is a resident and also a ordinary resident has to pay the tax on his worldwide income, or you can say global income, right? And of course that particular individual can claim the benefits of the you can say direct taxation acts, right? Whereas a non-resident or resident but he's a not ordinary resident has also paid tax only on that income which has been sourced from India, which has been earned and received in India. That is also a label to pay a tax, right? So these are the two categories. The person who is resident and also a ordinary resident has to pay a tax. A person who is resident or non-resident but not an ordinary resident as well has also paid a tax if their income is earned and received in India only. That's assured that these individuals has to pay the tax, and the non-resident means that they have no right to pay a tax on his worldwide income. After all, he doesn't spend none of the days in India. So now we have to learn exactly the residential status and the tax incidents. So let's begin. So let's read about the residential status for individuals. Now in this particular upcoming slide, there are the various rules under the Income Tax Act which you need to follow up and accordingly to estimate the residential status in the upcoming practical questions in these particular slides. So let's talk about the residential status for individual. So residential status are classified into two categories, main categories. The first one is resident and the second one is non-resident. And under the resident column, it also being classified into two subgroups, that is resident but ordinary resident and resident but not ordinary resident, which also shown in the slides as well. But how to determine their status, you can see the expected rules in the upcoming slides. So to knowing that the residential status for individuals, so residency in India is determined with the physical number of days that a particular person or anyone has been stayed in India. So this is exactly the whole chart in this slide to exactly know that what would be the residential status and how it will be classified into different categories. So this is all about in this. Any doubts in this till yet?
No,
Any
sir.
doubts, students, till yet?
No, sir. We are through.
Okay. Let's talk about the basic conditions of individual to know the residential status of a particular individual. So these are the basic condition, right? The two conditions. So any one of the condition, if an individual has fulfilled any one of the condition, that means a particular individual will become a resident of India, right? If if any of the individual haven't fulfilled any of the basic conditions, he become the non-resident of India, right? So what are the conditions? So these are the two basic conditions. A particular individual, if a particular individual spend more than 182 days in the relevant previous year, right? That means he can become a resident of India. If a particular individual has fulfilled this condition that he has stayed 182 days in the previous years, it means he is a resident of India. Or if any of the individual have satisfied the second condition as well, that is, if a particular individual spend more than 60 days in a financial year plus more than 365 days in 4 financial years preceding the relevant financial year, that means he also become a resident of India. So there are 2 days you have to count it. First, in second condition, a particular individual has to spend more than 60 days plus he has also has to spend more than 365 days in 4 financial years. Let's take an example. I counted 4 financial years as 2018 to 19, 2019 to 20, 2020 to 21, and 2021 to 22. These are the 4 financial years. And counting of these years, that in this particular year they have spent this particular number of days, in this particular year he has spent this number of days, and simultaneously in the other 2 years as well. And after totaling, if it is more than 365 days, that means he will become a resident of India, right? So these are the particular graphs. If you can read, if any one out of two conditions satisfied, it becomes R stands for resident of India. If none of the conditions, if any of the basic condition has satisfied, it become, he or she become the non-resident of India, right? Let's talk about the 2 points over here. In case any Indian citizen leaving India as the number of a crew of an Indian ship or for the purpose employment outside India, it means if any of the Indian citizen, obviously, if you are an Indian citizen and since the birth and you have spent a long period of time, so it automatically everyone can understand that and he is a resident of India. Second is Indian citizen or a place of incidence comes on visit to India. You are an Indian citizen and you will visit occasionally or purposely to India for some purpose or some specific purpose or a journal purpose. Then also you will tag a status that he or she will become a resident of India, right? So if any of these two conditions also comes in your question, so it means he or she will become a resident of India. After all, in these 2 points it already shows that that he or she is an Indian citizen. So if any one of the Indian citizen, automatically he become a resident of India. And later on, whether this resident is ordinary or non-ordinary, we have to satisfy more conditions, right? It's already written that if any of these 2 points comes in your questions, so obviously it's a resident and the number of days in India should be more than 182 days in the relevant previous year. So if any individual wants to become a resident of India, he or she has to stay more than 182 days in the relevant year or in the previous years. Let's talk about now, in order to determine that whether a resident is called an ordinary resident or a resident called a non-ordinary resident. So these are the additional two conditions to fulfill. If both the condition has been fulfilled or has been satisfied, a particular resident can become an ordinary resident as well. If both the condition has not been satisfied, then it become a resident but called a non-ordinary resident of India, right? So what are these two conditions? So first point is resident in India for at least, in before you have to satisfy the basic conditions. So once you satisfy the basic condition, you will get to know that whether you are a resident or non-resident. So after satisfying the basic condition, you, in order to know that whether you are an ordinary resident or not ordinary resident, that these two additional conditions has also to be satisfied. So if you are a resident in India, you have to spend at least 2 out of 10 years, previous years, immediately. Just hold on, please. Right? First point is you are a resident, and but you have to fulfill these two conditions. So to satisfy the ordinary resident of India, a particular individual has to spend 2 out of 10 previous years immediately preceding the relevant financial year. For example, the financial year is 2023 to 2024. So what would be the two relevant preceding years? If the if I select the year 2023 to 24, so two preceding relevant previous year, what would be? So the two preceding relevant previous years would be 2020 to 21 to 2020 to 2022, right? Or 2022 to 2023. It would be the relevant previous years. Second condition is he has to be in India, he or she has to be in India for 730 days or more during the 7 previous years immediately preceding the relevant financial year. So if anyone wants to become an ordinary resident, he has to spend 730 days or more during the 7 previous years. So during the 7 previous years, if a particular individual has spent 730 days or more, he will become an ordinary resident of India as well. So these are the two additional conditions. So if you talk about these two conditions, is almost similar. It means a particular two condition says that a particular individual or a resident has to spend 730 days or more. If he satisfied this condition, he become an ordinary resident of India, right? If none of the additional condition has been certified, he become a non-ordinary resident. So any doubts in these additional conditions?
For the 2 out of 10 previous years and for the 730 days or more, does it have to be continuous
Yes.
or and it has to be continuous?
There are two conditions over here. There are two conditions over here. First, the resident in India has to spend 2 years out of 10 previous years preceding the relevant years, and he has to spend 730 days or more during 7 previous years. So, like for example, you are residing in India during the 7 years, so within the 7 years, if 730 days is almost being completed or more than that, you become an ordinary resident. Right? If you satisfy the both condition which have the same meaning, which is very similar to each other, they are categorized two conditions, but they are very similar. Both say 735 days. If you count it 2 years, it's written now, it's 2 out of 10 years. So two, what is the meaning of 2 years? It's 730 days. 2 years means 1 year counts like 365 days. So when it comes to the 2 years, it's 730. So in the first condition, you have to spend 730 days. In the second condition, you have to spend 730 days during the 7 previous years. But in the first condition, you have to spend 2 out of 10 previous years. So if you have spent 730 days or more, 730 days or more than that during 10 previous years or 7 previous year, you have become an ordinary resident of India. Now we talk about the important note regarding the residential status. So these particular conditions is applied to individual and Hindu undivided family. That means in case of individual and Hindu undivided family, these classification resident, non-resident, ordinary resident, not ordinary residents applies, except rest of the persons. It would be you can say firm, company, association of persons. So these classification doesn't apply. It applies only the resident and the non-resident. So if you talk about the company, so in case of the company, a particular knowing to determine the residential status, it could be termed as resident or non-resident. Ordinary or not ordinary doesn't count it, and it doesn't estimate in these particular categories of the persons. So let's take, if you talk about the if you talk about the body of individuals, so we can calculate in the body of individual whether a body of individual a resident or non-resident. We have no rules to knowing that whether a body of individual is ordinary resident or not ordinary resident. This rules ordinary and not ordinary doesn't apply into the firms, companies, body of individuals, artificial judiciary persons. It doesn't apply in that particular categories of the persons. So let's talk about the practical questions when we talk about individual, to knowing whether this particular person is a resident, ordinary resident, or not ordinary resident. Let's read the question. Mr. Krish left India for the first time on May 20, 2017. During the financial year 2019 to 20, he came to India. When in determining the residential status, you have to major focus on that a particular person or individual, how many days he has reside in India, right? So it's written during the financial year 2019 to 20, he came to India once on May 2027 for a period of 53 days. It means in the year 2019 to 20, that particular person, Mr. Krish, has reside in India for 53 days. Determine his residential status for the assessment year 2020 to 21. Right now, come back to the basic condition. We want to know that whether this person, Krish, is a resident of India or not resident of India. He has spent only 53 days. So let's begin. Let's come to the condition. 182 days in the relevant previous year and more than 60 days in the financial year plus 365 days. So it's written Mr. Krish come to India only for 53 days. So when we talk about the basic condition, a particular individual has to spend more than 182 days. Second condition, he has to spend more than 60 days plus 365 days. But in this question, this person has spent only 53 days. That means he does not satisfy any of the basic condition. As a result, he become a non-resident of India for the assessment year 2020 to 21. So when we talk about for the assessment year 2020 to 21, what would be the previous year? The previous year is 2019 to 20. Any doubts in this question? Any doubts in this question, students? So this is how to apply the conditions and rules into the practical questions. So once you memorize the condition and how many days would be counted to exactly know the residential status of an individual, you can easily grab the question and estimate the answer. Let's proceed to another question. Right, Mr. Brett Lee, an Australian cricketer player, visits India for 100 days in every financial year. Right, this has been his practice for the past 10 financial years. find out his residential status for assessment year 2000 to 20 to 21, right? It means here in the first sentence, it's automatically clear that Bradley is an Australian cricketer player and visits India for 100 days in every financial year. It means when we come back to the basic condition, what was the basic condition? There are two basic conditions, and any one of them has to satisfy so that he or she can become a resident of India. Brett Lee has an Australian cricketer player visit India for 100 days in every financial year. What is the two basic conditions over that were more than 182 days in the relevant financial year? Let's talk about in the second condition is it's more than 60 days, right? So automatically 60 days condition, more than 60 days already satisfied. Plus plus is 365 days. If you read the condition over here, I will always show these are the condition. Second condition is already fulfilling in that particular question. A particular Australian cricketer visit India for 100 days in every financial year. When we talk about second B condition of basic, more than 60 days in the financial year. 60 days condition is a fulfilled because he has visit India for 100 days. But plus more than 365 days in the 4 financial years preceding the relevant financial year. So let's calculate about this. So let's talk about the 4 financial year over here. So let's talk about previous year. What would be the previous year over here in this question? Previous year is 2019 to 2020. Assessment year is 2020 to 21. So if we talk about previous year, what is the second condition of basic B? B condition of the basic condition is it's the candidate or a particular person has to spend more than 60 days. If that Brett Lee has already spent 100 days. So 60 days condition is already satisfied. Now we have to satisfy more than 365 days during the 4 preceding financial years. So what would be the preceding financial years would be 2019 to 20 is the previous year. So let's consider to 4 years back of the previous years. So what would be the 4 years back? Tell me. Anyone could tell me? 2015 to 16, 2016 to 17, 2017 to 18, oops, 2017 to 18, and 2018 to 19. Now, these are the 4 financial years of the preceding the previous year. So what is the previous year is? 2019 to 20. So what would the meaning of that line is? That more than 365 days, right? Or in the 4 previous year preceding the relevant year. So the relevant year would be previous years 2019 to 20. So the 4 preceding previous years would be 2015 to 16, 16 to 17, 17 to 18, 2018 to 19. So automatically, if we counted the number of days in these relevant years, so please read the question very carefully. In the first sentence only, the answer is already there. Brett Lee, an Australian cricketer player, visits India for 100 days in every financial year. So these are the financial years. So 2015 to 16, 100. How many days? 100. 2016 to 17, 100 days. 2017 to 18, 100 days. And 2018 to 19, 100 days. So if we total the number of days, so 400 days. So automatically the base out of the basic condition, B condition has been satisfied in this particular question. So, as per the B condition, more than 60 days, it's already covered 100 days in every financial year, plus more than 365 days during the 4 preceding previous years relevant to the financial year. So previous year is 2019 to 20, and 4 preceding previous are these are the years 15 to 16, 16 to 17, 17 to 18, 2018 to 19. And it's already written in the question that Bradley has already visited for 100 days in every financial year. So if these are the financial year, it means they come up in these financial years 100 days only. So these are the 100 days has been counted, and the total days are for 800 days. It means that Bradley is a resident of India, right? Now we talk about the next part of the question is to get to understand in order to determine that whether Bradley is the ordinary resident or the not ordinary resident. So let's come up the additional two conditions. These are the two conditions. So ultimately, we get to know that in order to determine the particular person is an ordinary non-resident, he has to spend 730 days or 730 days or more. So let's come back to the question to set to whether to get to know that this Bradley has satisfied the additional conditions or not of to in order to know whether it is ordinary or not ordinary. So let's talk about find his residential status. So what is the condition? If we talk about first additional condition, the first A part, 2 years, 2 out of 10 years. So let's talk about 2 years is already satisfied. It's already covered 400 days, right? It's already covered 2 years out of 10 financial years. So if we talk about 10 financial years and 2 years is already spent, which covered under these previous years. So it's already satisfied. A part of additional condition is already satisfied. Now we have to talk about the second part. Second part of additional condition is 730 days more than 730 days. So more than 30 during the 7 financial years. So let's talk about 7 financial years. We talk about the back one. So now we can take a further years, 7 years. 4 years is already covered. So 2014 to 15, right? 100 days. Next, 2013 to 14, again 100 days. They come up for 100 days only in every financial year. Then again, we have to take up 7 previous years. 4 years is already took, right? And 3 years are the one. So 2012 to 2013, 100 days. So now when we talk about total, so in total, how many days he has covered? 400 days plus 300 days. So ultimately, it's 700 days only. But in the additional condition is 730 days or more. So unfortunately, Brickley has not satisfied the second condition during the 7 financial years out of 10. So if we took up the 7 previous years, it's only covered 700 days, right? And the candidate needs more than 730 days. So unfortunately, Braitley has not satisfied the additional conditions. As a result, Braitley has become a resident of India, but he's a not ordinary resident of India, right? So if we consider in other words, we say 7 years out of 10 years. So 7 into 100, it's become 700 days, right? It's already calculated 700 days. In other words, to verify your answer, right, from the question. 7 years, 100 days this man has spent in India. So 7 years into 100, he becomes 700 days. The condition has not been satisfied. So the additional condition is not satisfied. As a result, he become a not ordinary resident of India, but he become a resident of India because he has spent more than 365 days plus more than 60 days as well. Any doubt in this question, student? Any doubt in this question? Any?
No, sir.
No doubt, sir.
So it is all about to get to know that you need to understand assessment year and financial year. Assessment year and previous year. Assessment year is already given to you in every question, and previous year you need to estimate, right, from the question, and accordingly you have to estimate the number of days during the previous years, or we can say preceding previous years. So if you get to know the previous year, you can easily find out the preceding previous years as well, right? So it's not difficult at all. It's all about the rules. If you easily understood the rules, you can easily grab the question. Now we talk about the residential status of Hindu undivided family. So as I already told you, that classification or categories of the resident or non-resident, ordinary or not ordinary, it comes under in case of individual and Hindu undivided family only. And rest of the categories of the persons, they're only a resident or not non-resident. So let's talk about the residential status of Hindu undivided family. It is categorized into two: resident under section 6 subsection 3, and non-resident section 2 and subsection 30. And resident is classified into two categories: ordinary resident and not ordinary resident. So the conditions of these, knowing to whether the resident not ordinary, uh, non-resident, ordinary resident. So it's a very easy condition. There's no difficulty at all. So when we talk about the Hindu undivided family, we always talk about the Karta. Karta is that particular member who has a power to control and manage the affairs of the company, and he's the head and brain as well of the company. So that person is called Karta. So Karta is a person who has control and manage all the affairs of the company. He's a head also, he's a brain of the company as well. And he's called Karta. So now you can read In order to get to know whether Hindu under HUF is a resident or non-resident, so you need to understand first that Hindu undivided family is said to be resident in every case except during that year, the control and management of its affairs is situated wholly outside India. So, if any business of Hindu undivided family, any business, it's situated outside India, is as a whole. So that means that HUF will become a non-resident of India. If if the business of Hindu undivided family is situated in India partially and wholly, he become a resident of India. So now read the concepts. It means that if a Hindu undivided family is controlled from India, even partially, it will be a resident SSC as well. The control and management of affairs refers to the controlling and directing power, the head and the brain, and that person is called Karta. It means that the decision making power for vital affairs is situated in India. Whatever the you can see the business affairs, the business management, the control should be in India only, right? Then he then HUF will become a resident. The control and the management means de facto. That means anything, any business should be existed in India only. That is called de facto in legal language, right? So the control and management should be exist, not merely the right to control or manage. So the control and management of any business of inverted fabric should exist in India. It doesn't mean that it just only to control and manage. No. If you are controlling and managing the business, it should be in India. It doesn't mean simply just to say control and manage and you become a resident. No. You should control and manage that particular business, and that business should exist in India. That's called that HUF become a resident of India. And in the yellow note is already it's a memorizing power and a note given to you so that you can remember or grab it easily. Resident if a control and management of affairs in India, wholly or partially, that HUF will become a resident of India. Right? Now we talk about the ordinary resident status. Now in the previous slide you will get to you already understood. Okay, this is a condition and you can HUM will become a resident. But now in the upcoming slide you need to understand that where if HUF is a resident in the second part of determining that whether HUF is ordinary or not ordinary. So you need to understand this. So a resident HUF is said to be ordinary resident if the Karta, I already taught you who is Karta, if the Karta fulfills both of the following additional conditions. So these are the two additional conditions which is very similar to the individual additional conditions. Both are same, but there is a one major difference. In the individual case, individual has to satisfy the both condition. But in the Hindu undivided family, the Karta has to satisfy the both conditions. That Karta has to spend 2 years out of 10 financial years or previous years. Second, Karta has been in India for 730 days or more during the 7 previous years preceding the relevant previous year. So these are the two categories, is almost same in individual cases. Well. The major difference is Karta in case of Hindu undivided family. right? So ordinary resident in a coding language, you need to understand. So once you understand the coding language, in order to identify the residential status, you can easily grab the question. So ordinary resident is control and management of affairs in India wholly or partially plus fulfillment of both additional condition by karta. That means he's a resident and ordinary resident of India, right? So HUF will become resident also and ordinary resident also if he satisfy the first condition and karta the additional both conditions as well. Control and management of its whole affairs of its business should be in India, wholly or partially, plus additional conditions, which is this two. So it become resident and ordinary resident as well. Now we talk about the not ordinary status of HUF. So if any, it's very simple. If any of the resident HUF have been satisfied the two additional conditions, he become a not ordinary resident of India. Right? He is a resident of India. HUF is called a resident of India, but he haven't the HUF if the karta haven't satisfied the additional condition, that karta will become a not ordinary resident of India. Right? So this is a basic difference. Rest is a theory part. So you can read of your own during these slides. So this is a difference of ordinary and not ordinary. So if the or to become an ordinary resident of India, the karta has to satisfy the both additional conditions. If in case of not ordinary resident of India, if none of the additional conditions have been satisfied, HUF will become a not ordinary resident of India. Right? So these two additional conditions have been applied in case of the manager, which we, on other words, we call under this income tax act, that is the karta of HUF. In case the karta has been succeeded by some other man for computing the presence in India, the length of the presence of India through that other man will also be counted in each succeeding year. Right? So if Karta has decided, okay, rest of the now from the upcoming years or succeeding years, the other man will handle or manage all the affairs of its business under his supervision. So that other man, if is in India is in India for the couple of years, upcoming couple of years, so that years will counted in calculating the residence of India. Now we talk about the summary of HUF: ordinary resident, not ordinary resident, and non-resident. So when we talk about ordinary resident, if the control or management of such HUF was wholly or partially in India during the relevant the previous year, he become an ordinary. Non-ordinary is the status is allowed only to HUF. Along with individuals, HUF shall be a not ordinary resident if the Karta can fulfill any one of the two tests given under section 6, subsection 6 of an individual. As I told you, the two additional condition has to be satisfied, which already given in the individual case as well. Right? So if he isn't satisfied, then he become a not ordinary resident. Now non-resident is he haven't satisfied the basic conditions. If the HUF haven't satisfied the basic condition, that is, if their business HUF business situated outside India, become a non-resident. So this is a summary of the Hindu undivided family. So now we do a practical questions so that you have a more clarity of the rules and regulations and the concepts as well. So let's read the question. Head office of X and Y, Hindu undivided family is situated in Hong Kong. So read the first line. Head office of X and Y, Hindu undivided family is situated in Hong Kong. That means outside India, right? The family is managed by Y, right? Wo is a resident in India. First, year 1 out of 10 years preceding the previous years 2019 to 20. So you need to estimate that years out of 10 years preceding the previous year 2019 to 20, determining the residential status of Hindu undivided family for the assessment year 2020 to 21 if the affairs of the family business are wholly controlled from Hong Kong and partially controlled from India. So, in order to understand the question, the first task a particular you can say student has to estimate what is the assessment year and what is the previous year. So, the assessment year is 2020 to 21 and the previous year is 2019 to 20. It's already given in the question. Determine the residential status of Hindu and Uttarakhand. The assessment year is 2020 to 21. So if the assessment year is 2020 to 21, the previous year is 2019 to 20. So let's begin A and B part of the question. So, if let's say if wholly controlled from Hong Kong, if the affairs of the family business are wholly controlled from Hong Kong, so the residential status of HUF is non-resident. As I already told you, if the Hindu undivided family business is controlled from outside India, which is Hong Kong, it's become the HUF will become non-resident of India. So the A part of the question, the solution is non-resident. For the assessment year 2000, reason is already given to you because the control and management of all the affairs of its business, it's situated outside India. Now B. B is partially controlled from India. It's very clear when it comes to in order to understand whether to find out the resident or non-resident. Non-resident you already understood. Resident is if the HUF business affairs are control and management either partial or wholly in India, the HUF will become a resident of India, right? So you can read, it's already given the answer. The residential status of HUF is resident. Because why it is resident? Because the business is partially managed from in India, and it's written here family is managed to by Y. Y जो था, it's already a part of the HUF, and he already a resident of India. And how it's already given that he spent out of 1 year out of these 2 years in the relevant previous years or relevant financial years. So it means automatically is understood. And second reason is this business is partially owned in India, is partially controlled and managed in India, and that's the main reason that HUF is a resident. But unfortunately, in this particular portion, the two additional conditions cannot be satisfied because only the 1 year data has been given in this question to identify whether the resident, whether it's ordinary or not ordinary. So the two additional conditions cannot be satisfied under this B category. That means HUF will become a resident but a non-resident of India. for the assessment year. The reason is given to you for the assessment year 2020 to 21 as the control and management of the affairs is partially done from India, and the Karta is not an ordinary resident because he was a resident of 1 out of 10 years preceding the previous. It's already given in the question that he cannot become a you can say ordinary resident because he has the Karta has spent only 1 year, and 1 year cannot satisfy the both additional conditions. So as a result, he's a resident but not ordinary resident, right? Let's talk about the second question. During the previous year, 2019 to 20, the affairs of an Hindu undivided family are managed partly from Hong Kong and partly from Nigeria. So, do you think that in this question, any of the word India has been mentioned? It's nothing I can't see in this question. So as a result, half business is from another country, half business are from another country. As a result, the global income of that Hindu and married family is from coming from two countries, Hong Kong and Nigeria. There is no mention all about India. As a result, it's automatically defined the answer that Hindu and divided family is a non-resident of India. Why? Because the control and management of its business of affairs is managed and controlled in two different countries. One from Hong Kong and the second from Nigeria. So it is very easy to understand the rules, basic rules of the HUF, that is partially and wholly situated in India. There is a control and management of its business of Hindu undivided family. Now, two additional condition is very similar to the additional condition of individual case. 2 out of 10 years, more than 730 days during the 7 previous year preceding the relevant years. So now these two additional conditions will almost dissatisfied in both of the questions. Any doubts in this particular questions or any queries you would like to ask me, students? Okay. Let's proceed of the residential status of a company. As I have already told you, when we talk about the residential status of a company, we always talk about that whether a company is a resident or non-resident. So these are the particular categories. But now in case of the company, we have to define the turnover to decide whether it would be resident or non-resident. And the turnover is 50 crores, right? So, residential status of a company. First, there are two categories of the company. When we talk about resident and non-resident, resident, Indian company, and foreign company. When we talk about Indian company, it always be a resident of India because Indian company is situated in India, is controlled and managed in India since long couple of years. So it's always be a resident. So there is no doubt to be considered in these particular category. Second is foreign company. Foreign company having a turnover which is more than 50 crores, where if the place of effective management should be in India, their place of its management and control of its affairs, if it is in India and the turnover is more than 50 crores, then in case of foreign company, that means a company can become a resident of India in foreign case, right? Non-resident. So non-resident we considered foreign company having a turnover more than 50 crores So always, if we talk about non-resident, we always talk about foreign companies. We cannot talk about Indian companies, right? So foreign companies, if the turnover is more than 50 crores, foreign company, it become a non-resident because the business affairs will not be situated in India. It's outside India, right? And the foreign company, as I already told, foreign company, if the place of effective management and affairs of its business, it's outside India, it becomes a non-resident, which is already stated in the resident. If the place of its management in control of its affairs of the business situated in India and the turnover, it's more than 50 crore in case of foreign company, it become a resident. But everything is outside the company, whether control and management, turnover, it's in case of the foreign company, that means it's become a non-resident of India. That particular company, which is called foreign company. Right? So the residential status of a firm and association of persons. So there are two categories: the place of control, wholly in India, only out of India, right? Partially in India and partially outside India. So the residential status is, if it is place of control in case of the firm and association of persons, only in India, resident, only out of India, non-resident, only partly in India and partly outside India, resident. So it's very similar if we talk about this HUF when it calls about control and management, right? If it in India, resident, partially and wholly in India, resident, outside India, non-resident. When it comes to the firm and association of persons, practical question will be asked in case of individual and a Hindu undivided family. So focus on that categories when it comes to the practical questions. So I'll give you the PDF file of the practical questions which will be asked in your IGNO examination when it comes to BCom level. So I will share in the particular after the session. So just gone through that question, just I have defined everything in that particular questions, and the solutions is well given in that particular questions, categorized wise. So, so you can read very easily and understood as well, right? So now we talk about the residential status more in detail of a company. So Indian and foreign company in a very short way. Place of control, wholly in India, only outside India, partly in India and partly outside India. Indian company, all of these three categories is resident. When we talk about a company other than Indian company, that means foreign company. So if it is wholly in India, it become a resident. If it is wholly outside India, partly in India, partly outside India, it become a non-resident. So you cannot define that it is an Indian, it's partly and foreign in case of the foreign company, partly in India and partly outside. So it is non-resident. No, you can't say it's resident because everything I already told you, the place of effective management and control of its business should be in India. It's resident. If outside India, if any of the foreign company situated outside of India, it becomes non-resident. So, which is already defined in this particular short chart. Now we talk about the residential status of every other person. Every other person is resident in India if control and management of its affairs is wholly or partially situated within India during the relevant previous year. On the other hand, every other person is non-resident in India if control and management of its affairs is only and partially situated outside India. So it means if any other person having any business who isn't situated in India and everything is in India, place of control and management, it's resident. If it's not, it becomes non-resident. It's very simple. Now we talk about the residential status of artificial judiciary persons. It's same here. This is already dictated. It's already told you on the previous slides. So, so it is very similar to the other than persons, right? So if we talk categorize into resident and non-resident, so even we talk about the local authorities and artificial judiciary persons would be resident in India if the control and management of its affairs is situated wholly or partly in India. If it is not outside India, if everything is outside India, become a non-resident. So local authorities and artificial judiciary persons termed as non-residents if everything is outside India's control and management of its business. This, in other words, we can say the place of effective management and control of its affairs of its business outside India become a non-resident. So, any doubts in this till yet? Any of the points which you are not understood and have some doubts in it? All
No
right.
doubt. Yeah.
Let's consider the other part incidence of tax. The residential status is categorized into resident ordinary ROR, that is resident ordinary resident, NOR non ordinary resident, NR is a non resident. Income labeled to tax, that means that income, whatever the income they have earned and received, it's taxable in India. So if we talk about resident, and an ordinary resident, if the global income is labeled to tax in India, for any income which has been earned in India, which has been earned from outside India, which termed as global income, is labeled to tax in India. They have to, that particular resident has to pay the tax in India only. Their income is taxable. When we talk about not ordinary resident, they're categorized into three. First is income accrued or deemed to accrued in India. That means the income is deemed to be earned in India or received to be India, income received or deemed to be received in whatever the income received, and the income is earned or arised to be that in India. Third is income derived from business and controlled and profession set up in India. So if any of these categories comes under not ordinary residents, their income is taxable. So whatever the income is earned, received, accrued to be, deemed to be received, deemed to be arised, right, earned, so their income is taxable. So whatever the income it's come arrived through or earned or received through any profession setup or any business control in India only, their income is totally taxable. When it comes to the non-resident, the income accrued or deemed to accrued in India. Second is income received and deemed to be received in India. That means the income which has been earned and which are to be earned in the upcoming you can see years or relevant years, they are taxable. So any income which is being received and deemed to be received in India, that is also taxable in India. So whatever the income they have earned within India, right? Whether they are non-resident, they are taxable. So you cannot avoid the tax in India, because if you avoid, it become a tax liability. So the tax outstanding, which being labeled on you, and which also a tax burden on your companies or your on a person, or you can say any of them. And it is very important to understand that whatever the income that a person or individual or HUF or you can say company earn, whether it would be global income or it's like received, earned, or deemed to be earned and deemed to be received. So this all income is taxable. So it's always been very important to show up your balance sheet and computation of income so that the tax authorities under Income Tax Act 1961 can easily investigate your every financial affairs of the company, and whatever the tax you have paid, if it's absolutely true and fair, that means there is no tax penalty or liability to be imposed on them. If it's something found after the investigation of all the computations of income and balance sheets of everyone, whether individual, HUF, and whether this company and association of persons, then definitely it would be a tax penalty on them. And accordingly, the charges under the Income Tax Act to be imposed, and everyone is liable to pay the tax if it is imposed. Now we talk about the scope of the total income. A resident and ordinary resident, it is a continued part. A resident, but or not ordinary resident and non-resident. So these are the conditions where the income is taxable, or you can say non-taxable. So if it is non-resident, so any income received or you can say earned or deemed to be received in the upcoming years or to be earned to be in the coming years in India, it's liable to tax, right? So resident and ordinary residents, everything is in India. Earned, income earned, received, deemed to be received. That means it received in the coming years. It's also liable to be. It's liable to tax. When we talk about resident but not ordinary resident, so income which is received, deemed to be received, accrued, and you can see arise and deemed to accrue and arise in India. Everything is in India. It's taxable. So this is all about the scope of the total income, and every tax will be calculated on your total income. So whatever the income that you have estimated and computed on that basis accordingly, as I told that it through the income tax slabs, the tax would be chargeable. Right, so this is all about the residential status. Now we will start the problems and the solutions of this residential status. Right, just wait. Why it's not connecting? Just wait for a while. I'm just checking why it's not connecting. It is working. Right. Okay. Now, we consider here the problems and the solutions of residential status. So, let's consider the first question one by one so that to have a more clarity on the concept and practical concepts of the residential status. So, this is the first question, that is during the previous year. This is a question, a particular, you can say a statement has been given, and accordingly the questions has been given what is being asked in the question to determine whether in this particular, whether it's X is a resident or not, whether if the X is resident and how many number of days has been spent on such in India or abroad. So this is all about in this particular question, residential, knowing the residential status. So question one is during, this is a long length questions, lengthy questions. So during the previous year, 2000, it is very important to read the question very carefully and accordingly estimate the number of days stay in India and accordingly apply the rules that I have taught in the slides. So once you apply that rules, then accordingly you can answer the question, right? So during the previous year 2019 to 20, X, a foreign citizen, stay in India for just 69 days. If you look up the basic conditions, there are two basic conditions, and out of one, if someone has satisfied, he become a resident of India. So what are the two basic conditions? First is more than 182 days, right? Second one is more than 60 days plus. Plus, how many days? More than 365 days during the four preceding previous years, right? So now is foreign citizen, X is a foreign citizen and he stay in India for just 69 days. 69 days. That means it is almost clear that that X has spent 69 days. It means it is more than 60 days. So the B condition or B of the basic condition is more than 60 days is almost fulfilled. Now we have to come to see that whether X has been fulfilled plus more than 365 days during the four preceding years, previous years or not. If it is X has satisfied this point as well, he become a resident of India. Now we have to read the question. During the previous year, 2019 to 20, X, a foreign citizen, stayed in India for just 69 days. Determine his residential status for the assessment year 2020 to 21 on the basis of the following information. Now, the information has been given, and you have to determine his residential status for the assessment year 2020 to 21. Now, following information first. During 2016 to 17, X was present in India for 366 days. In the second part of the question, the information is during 2013 to 14 and 2012 to 13, X was in Japan for 359 and 348 days respectively, right? So ultimately there is no use of any of such information if X has spent days in Japan. So these days will not be counted, right? Only the days will be counted if on the basis of this information that how many days X has spent in India during these years. So for example, in a whole year, 365 days, right, in India, in a year. But 2013 to 14, X has spent in Japan 359 days. So when we deduct from 265 from 359, the rest of the days will come up in India only. So likewise, and for the balance period in India, it's already written. The rest of the balance period means rest of the number of days he stayed in India. So whatever the days spent in India will be the number of days in India. Mr. X is resident in India for the assessment year. It's already given. Mrs. X is resident in India. That means the wife of X is a resident of India for the assessment year for 2020 to 21. So now we have to answer the questions accordingly for the information wise. A, second information part, first information part, second information, and part third information. We need to check on to determine the residential status of X. So let's begin. The answers It's already have in your slides to determine whether Mr. X is a resident or not, right? So let's read. You have to you need to memorize the condition, the basic two conditions. He's a resident for previous year 2019 to 20. It's already given to you. He has spent more than 60 days. He has to satisfy the second condition as well. During the previous year for 69 days in the preceding 4 years, that is 366 days, right? That is three more than 365. So if more than 365, it will be 366 days as well. As I already told you, when it comes up to the basic conditions, that means more than 60 days is already fulfilled. But the second part of the B basic condition is more than 365 days. He has to satisfy. Mr. X has to satisfy that. Then he become a resident of India. So now, in order to find out the number of days, this is a way to estimate the number of days. In that particular years, we need to find out whether resident or non-resident. So in 2018 to 19, any data given to you? So what is the assessment year? Assessment year is 2020 to 21, right? So we consider year is, and the previous year is 2019 to 2021. So assessment year you get to know, previous year you get to know. Now you have to find out the preceding 7 years back. So these are the 7 years information given to you. So begin from 2018 to 19. Previous year is 2019 to 20. So preceding previous years are, these are the preceding previous years. The preceding 10 previous years. These are 2018 to 19. Any information given to you 18 to 19 in this question? 2016 to 17 information has been given. 2013 to 14 information. 2012 to 13 information. And 2018 to 19, none of the information has been given, so nil. If no information is given to you that how many days he has stayed in India, you become a non-resident. Now we come up to the 2017 to 18. No information given in the question. Nil. 2016 to 17. Any information, these years also has been considered based on the question only. So 2016 to 17 information, X was present in India 366 days. So 2016, 366 days. So this condition is satisfied, basic condition. He become a resident. How he become a resident? X has spent 60 days plus 365, more than 365 days. He's a resident. In year 2016 to 17. Right? 2015 to 14, no information has been given. 2014 to 15, no information has been given. 2013 to 14. During 2013 to 14, X was in Japan for 359 days. So when we deduct 365 days, 365 days, when we deduct from 365 days, 359, 7 days would be there. So 7 days he has spent in India, he become a non-resident during that year. When it comes to the 2012 to 11, 2012 to 13, again he has spent 348 days. So 365, we have to deduct 348 out from the 265. So 17 days will be left, and 17 days is not enough to call the resident of India. As a result, he become a non-resident. Then 2011 to 12. no information has been given, and earlier years no information. Why we have considered these years? Because of the base to fulfill the basic condition to get to know that whether X is a resident of India or not. So, as according to the this preceding 10 years, we have no exact information has been given, and according to this information, it shows that X has not been completed the 730 days as well, even not even the additional conditions as well during the seven preceding previous years. So neither he has not fulfilled the additional condition. And of course, if you have not fulfilled the additional condition, it means it's already been decided. If he has not satisfied the two additional conditions, it means he is not ordinary resident, right? But he is a resident. How he is a resident? Because he has satisfied the B condition of the basic conditions. He has spent more than 60 days plus 365 days during the four preceding years. And if during the four preceding years is already spent, X is already spent in India 366 days. As a result, he is a resident, but he has not satisfied any of he has not satisfied the both additional conditions, right? That is more than 730 days. As a result, he is not an ordinary resident of India. So this is a way to estimate the answers of the given questions, right? So if you remember the rules, you will get to know the exact answer. So this is the exact scenario of the question. Is a long, lengthy question where a lot of information has to be given, and even such information is also given which makes you to confuse, right? Which makes you to confuse. As a result, the answer will not be. It would be difficult to understand, but if you remember the rules, so definitely you can grab the question and estimate the correct answer. Let's talk about the second question. Mr. Kohli, a citizen of India, is an export manager of Arjun Overseas Limited, an Indian company, since 1st May 2015. He has been regularly going to US for export promotion. He spent the following days in the US for the last 5 years. So these are the years given to you. That 2006, 16, 317 days, 2017, 150 days, 2018, 271 days, 2019 311 days, and 2020 294 days. Determine his residential status for assessment year 2020 to 21, the assuming that prior to 1st May 2015 he had never traveled abroad. That means since 1st May 2015, before that, he never traveled to abroad. So, how you estimate the couple of days, a total days that you can say Kohli has spent stay in India. So, in a year, there are 365 days, right? The information is given to this years 2015 to 16, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, right? We have to estimate the residential statement for assessment year 2020 to 21. Previous year is 2019 to 20, right? And it's already the data has been given also 2019 to 20. So 31st May 2016, its ending period. So what would be the beginning financial year period is It's 1st April 2015. So that means 2015 to 16. 2017, 2016 to 17, because ending is 2017. So the beginning year is 2016. Same in the third category, 2018 is the ending year. To 2017 is the beginning year. That is 1st April 2017. 2017 to 18. 2018, 2019, 2019, 2018, 2020, and 2019 to 20 is the previous year. And what would be the assessment year? 2020 to 21. So now we have to estimate the total number of days that Mr. Kohli has stayed in India. So these are the days. Now we come up in 2016, a number of days spent. Mr. Kohli has spent in 2015 to 16 is 317. So in a year, in a 1 year, there are 365 days, right? And he spent in US 317. So the balance days he has stayed in India. So how many days is 48 days after deducting 217 from the 265. Let's come to the 2016 to 17 150. So if we deduct 365, it is 215. It's not 216. It's 215 days. It's a typing error. So 150, 365 minus 150, it's 1 365 out of 150, how many days would be? It's 165. And in 2016, how many days would be data would be given to you? So this is a grammatical typing mistake over here, that out of 365 days, it's 215. It's not 16. It's 215 days, right? Then 2017 to 18 to 71. So you can deduct out of it, you will get the 94 days. And accordingly, upcoming years as well, 2018, that how many number of days the Mr. Kohli has stayed in India. These are the number of days. Now, we have to, if you remember the basic condition, it's more than 182 days, or more than 60 days plus more than 365 days. So now, during the previous year, 2019 to 20, he stayed more than 60 days. That is 71 days during the previous year. Previous year would be, it is 71 days. More than 60 days during the previous year, plus more than 365 days during the 4 preceding years, during the more preceding previous years. So if you talk about the previous years is 2019 to 20, so the preceding years would be these 4 years. The total of these 4 years is more than 365 days. And as a result, Mr. Kohli has become a resident of India because he has satisfied the one basic condition out of the two. So he has become a resident of India because he has also spent more than 62 days, 60 days plus 365 days. So this is a resident, you can say status, he's a resident. Now we come up to the ordinary resident and the not ordinary resident. So this is a, you can say the exact scenario of this. So if you've gone through these particular answers, you can easily understood. So what would be the answer over here? He satisfied the first condition, that at least 2 out of 10 previous years prior to the relevant previous year, and the second condition of being India for 730 days or more in the 7 preceding years. That means he's a resident and the ordinary resident of India. So if you calculate since the beginning, you can easily estimate that if he has spent 2 years in India of the previous years, that means you can easily understood over here the resident in India condition or of 182 days for citizen not applicable. He has not gone for the employment abroad, but he has been going out in India, of course, during the course of employment. So during the 2018 to 19, 54 days. During, obviously it's non-resident, 17 to 18, 94 days, because we have to estimate the preceding 4 years, but more than 365 days in the four preceding years, hence resident, which I already explained to you, right? Then if we four, then we got to talk about 2016 and 17 is 2016 is a resident, then 2015 is a non-resident, 15, 2000 Pinot to 2015 is a resident. So if we calculate Pinot to 2015, it is calculated the years under this category. So if you calculate, he becomes satisfied. It is a resident and ordinary resident because he has satisfied, you can say, the whole exact years in this additional conditions. Right? So once you've gone through of these particular questions, so you can easily understood. Question number 3, these are the three categories which has been accordingly different scenario of the questions, two parts, and accordingly you have to estimate the number of days and determine the residential status, whether he is a resident or not, according to the total number of days stay in India. Right? Same in the question number 4, determine the residential state of related to the Hindu undivided family. These are the four questions, and accordingly, you have to answer that whether HUF is a Hindu divided family or is a resident or ordinary resident, or you can say not ordinary resident or non-resident. Right? So always be remember. So when before you estimate or determining the number of days, so once you determine the number of days and then apply the rule, right? And how to estimate the number of days? Obviously in a 1 year 365 days, so the total number of days a person has spent in that particular year, you can deduct from 365, you will get the total number of days that he or she has stayed in India in the respective years, right, according to the question. So, if we talk about 2015, he had never traveled abroad. It means that since 2015, he is in India. Kohli is in India. That means he is a resident, and he can easily, you can say, clarify the both additional conditions as well. So that's why he's the ordinary resident of India. So accordingly, you have to think such scenario and then estimate based on the question, which has been the statements given in the question, and accordingly you have to you can say determine the status. Right? So when we talk about the question number 4, the questions are related to the Hindu undivided family. So these four categories, the question is related to HUF, which I already you can say explain in the slides as well. The rules, the conditions or conditions, and how it could be called. You can say a resident or non-resident, ordinary or not ordinary, and accordingly you have to estimate the number of days as according as applicable, and just determine the status of HUF. So these are the answers given to you one by one. So you can easily go on through before you look at the answers. It is very important that first you try yourself these questions. and then match with the answers. So if something is wrong, you can easily identify your mistake so that you can't repeat that mistake again, and you can easily understand the concept of the residential status, the exacts, the rules and regulation, how to put on in the questions. Right, the question number 5, it's relate, of course, residential status, and the days is already given to you, and accordingly you have to find out the answers. There are 3 categories, 1, 2, 3, so you have to find out accordingly. So when you there's one important note to be given in this session. So when you find out the answers, you have to mention the reason, that if it is resident, how it has been resident. According to the conditions, you have to write down the conditions as well. That this condition, basic condition, has been fulfilled. And what was the basic condition? And accordingly, it is called a resident of India in the respective relevant years or previous years, right? So this is a way to estimate in a very easy way. So the other language which has been given in this particular PDF is very easy, so I will share in the group as well. Mm, okay. Right, if you have any doubts or anything, just let me know. We wind up the session of related to residential status. So it's almost over. So in the next upcoming, you can say chat session relate to salaries, income from salaries. So there are different parameters as gratuities, perquisites, house rent allowance, medical allowances, different categories of the allowances and their rules with their respective mini questions to understand. And at the end of the session, a full-fledged salary practical question is to be asked in the exam, right? So once you learn step by step the concepts and the practical aspects, then you can able to do the full flesh question of this of the salaries session, right? So if you have at the end of the session, if you have any questions or queries, just let me know. If you have any questions, just let me know. It is not difficult, it's very easy to understand. Yeah. Okay, so the session has been end up over here, and even I have to share this PDF. The meaning of DTAA, it is the Direct Taxation Applicable Act, right? RNOR, it means resident and not ordinary resident, right? Unless I'm telling the queries that you have asked in the chat, meaning of DTA stands for Direct Taxation Applicable Act. The taxes and the estimation, the rules and regulation which has been designed, which has been formulated, accordingly we have to apply under the residential status, that is the rules and regulations and the condition has been asked and has been framed, right? Now we talk about the RNOR. It is one of the category of the resident, that is the resident and not ordinary resident. So the conditions of becoming of such resident and not ordinary residents, I already explained in the slides, right? The next question is, am I only one who can't hear the lecturer for some minutes now? Maybe it's the noise, maybe the volume issue would becomes, or network connectivity would be the another reason from your end, because from my end the voice and internet connectivity is well running, right? So I don't think that the like the volume or the you can say internet or network connectivity issue has been arised for my by my end. So I would suggest you the recording sessions is already the session has been recording, and our recording is in process, so you can demand the recording and accordingly you can listen the lecture again. So of course definitely the volume issue wouldn't be there. Yes, HUF is also the name of a person. In the first session, I already explained the meaning of different categories of person. HUF is another category of person because under a Hindu undivided family, it is a group of persons. It is a group of the family members only. And under the family members, the business has been controlled and managed by the Karta. And I already told you who is Karta. Karta is that person who had a power, who had a brain of that the control and the management of the affairs of its business. Yes, I would suggest where the network issue would be there in your country, you just ask for the recording sessions and you can easily listen. Definitely, you will understand very well, right? So, if you have any other queries, or you can drop an email to me. I'll just write down my email ID. If you have any queries related to residential status or any practical questions with solution you need to ask, this is my email ID. You can drop an email to me. I can definitely rectify your queries. It's tarun.atmc06 at the rate gmail.com. Right, this is my email ID. If you have any doubt, if you have any doubts related to any of the topics, queries, so you can drop an email and definitely I can share you the notes, study notes relevant to the topics in detail, so you can easily understood well. If you have any doubts, you can drop an email, right? I already dropped in my email ID in the chat box. Please check it. It's tarun.atmc06 at the rate gmail.com. Right? So the session is over now. So you can write down the email ID from the chat box. So if in case you have any doubts, you can drop me an email. Right? So from now onwards, the session is over. You're most welcome, students. In the next session, we will begin a new topic, that is salary, income from salary, and it is a very broad topic. So it is very important to understand each and every part of the, you can say, categories of the salaries and its calculation. So I will teach one by one in that particular blocks. Uh, if you need a notes, you can drop an email. So I will look into it and share it accordingly. Right? That I can do. All right. Take care. Bye. Have a great day. See you the next session. And of course, we'll learn a new more topics which are very helpful in your real life. Right? All right. Take care. Bye bye to all.
Bye, sir.